Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gan Krishna. I'm the National Sales Manager for TVET at Macmillan Publishers. A very warm welcome to the final webinar in the series of webinars presented by Macmillan and Tropan Publishers. This has been a long journey. We started off with N4, then moved on to N5, and finally we've arrived here with N6. Our intention was to support lecturers in implementing the curriculum changes and to make it as easy as possible for you to manage this in the classroom. The platform we are going to use today is the GoToWebinar. You will find the control panel on your right-hand side. Please make use of this to pose your questions to our presenter, and she will tackle this at the most opportune time. Also note, our sales team is currently visiting colleges with sample copies. If you have not received this, please email me. My details are in the chat box. I've also provided links to promo copies, the e-version, so you could access that whilst you wait for a hard copy. But I'm hoping by now that you should have received your sample copies. So as I said, if you haven't done so, please let me know so we can make plans to get you a copy. On to our presenter today. Her name is Alma Janse van Rensburg. She's head of Department of Business Studies part-time at Northlink College. She has extensive experience in various aspects of lecturing and being a manager. She has been in education for nearly 40 years and dealt with a high number of business subjects, including entrepreneurship N4 and N5, marketing management N4, labor relations N5 and N6, introductory accounting and financial accounting N4, personnel management N4 and N5, equipping her with extensive knowledge on all aspects of entrepreneurship. She has been marking entrepreneurship for many years, and she's also been involved with marking of other subjects. She has also acted as examiner and internal moderator at TVET. She's an external moderator at Umalusi and is familiar with how questions should be set to cover all the cognitive levels. She's the author of a number of textbooks published by Macmillan and Tropan, including Introductory Financial Accounting N4, Introductory Entrepreneurship and Business Management N4, Entrepreneurship and Business Management N4 to N6, Labor Relations N5 and N6. So we have a presenter who brings with her tons of experience, and I'm sure she's going to provide valuable insights and tips for you as she starts today's presentation. So it's over to Alma to start the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for the introduction. Thank you also to Macmillan and Tropan for the opportunity to be part of this webinar. There had been a lot of role players, and I really want to extend my thanks and my appreciation to all parties involved in getting the N6 book also ready for DHET for screening, and then also the marketing team that will visit the colleges. I'm very thankful to report this afternoon that we were successful with the first screening at DHET, and that the book was recommended, and that actually, as a matter of fact, no weaknesses were identified, for which we are really very, very thankful. A hearty welcome to you all. Yes, I hope you have a cup of coffee. We will be busy for almost an hour. We will not have activities as time is limited, and you can ask questions, but I would prefer if we rather deal with all questions right at the end of this session. As you know, it is now the new DHET curriculum. We first went through in 4 and then in 5, and now it's in 6. Please don't be shocked if you see the implementation date on this slide as July 2022. It is January 2023. You will also note that at times they actually indicate on the syllabus the wrong level. But I think you are aware of the fact that in 4, in 5, and in 6 is on level 5. Now, when we look at the syllabus, it is still about existing knowledge that the students already obtained in 4 and in 5. But now we're moving more and more towards practical application as far as possible, as at the end, we don't want only to prepare students to write the final exam, but we want to create the love for entrepreneurship, and we really want them to become entrepreneurs. We will make them aware again of the various business options, and also how to expand their business in the long run. But as I've said, lecturers, please take note, the accent is very, very much on practical application. Those of you that have lectured the subject before will also know that the open book exam is very, very much focused on practical application of knowledge. In N4 and N5, we introduced the students to who is an entrepreneur. We quickly took them through all the management functions in a business, but now it is actually moving to the higher level in an organization, how to do strategic planning. Again, it's about the forever changing environment. So included in the N6 book will again be a detailed discussion of the well-known SWOT analysis. But this time we will also integrate that with industry analysis, as the industry will also determine the challenges in the market and macro environment. We will have a look at competitive analysis, because in this syllabus, the accent is very, very much on how are you going to deal with your competitors, which strategies can you use either to defend your current competitive advantage or to obtain a competitive advantage. In 4 and in 5, we only focused on the sole trader, partnership, and companies. Remember, closed corporations cannot be established anymore, although if already in existence, they can continue or they can be converted into a company. But in this book, we will also have a look at other possibilities like buying an existing business, franchising, entering the international market. This is quite a challenging module to the students, as it's a little bit, I think, beyond their field of experience. And then we're also going to have a look at consultancies. Now, a huge challenge is that you will see in the syllabus that they actually want the students to develop a business plan for a franchise, a consultancy, and the international business. I think when you hear this, you will realize this is a bit of a tall order, but I will try and guide you on how you can deal with this aspect. So just a quick overview then with the weighted values of each module. Planning your business, the dynamic business environment, the implementation of strategic planning, competitive analysis, strategy, and competitive advantage. If you look at these first 5 modules, they are very, very much integrated. I also strongly recommend, and I will repeat it again later, that you do module 1 and 3 together. They actually form a unit. Module 1, the accent is on planning your business. In other words, there we are going to have a look at vision, mission, long-term, short-term objectives, and the theory about strategy and the development of these. Whilst in module 3, you will see it says the implementation of strategic planning in a business. So there the accent is on the practical application of what the students already are familiar with and what they studied in Module 1. Then the last modules are the other forms of businesses, buying an existing business, franchising, the international business plan, and consultancies. Again, I just want to say that you can never look at a module in isolation. When you analyze old exam papers, you, for instance, will see in the past there always had been a whole question, for example, on franchising. But the questions or the answers don't only come from franchising. In there, they can ask questions like, which strategy did this business use? Was it a generic, one of the generic strategies? Was it an offensive or a defensive strategy? They would say develop a mission, or they will give the mission of the franchise, and they will ask the students to evaluate the mission. So none of these modules are ever asked in isolation. It's a whole integration of all the aspects that they are going to study. If we look at the changes to content, lecturers, I immediately want to put you at ease by saying, really, the content of the new curriculum remained the same. But the change comes in with your teaching approach and the assessment structure. It very strongly also builds on what the students did in 4 and in 5. Now, to assist you with this and to link it to in 4 and in 5, especially also with regard to the business plan, we have added a number of QR codes in the book, which will enable you and the students to access and view certain sections of work that the students already did in 4 and in 5. These QR codes will also assist you in viewing important videos, because remember on the calculations, because the calculations will always form part of the business plan. Calculations referring to the calculation of the market share, the break-even point, and the cash flow statement. Yes, this I already said to you. If we now start browsing through the modules, I strongly recommend that you do Module 1, planning your business, and then implementation of that planning that you did, that you do these two together. You will see that at times theory will be repeated, but it is to make it very easy for the students to relate to what they already did. Some of the aspects that you will find in Module 1 and 3 also had been done in Entrepreneurship in 5. For example, the development of the mission, the vision, the development of long-term, medium-term, and short-term objectives, and also a little bit of strategic planning that they already touch on in 5. And another aspect that you will also see that had been repeated is how to create new ideas, brainstorming, the reverse method, that had been transferred as it had been in 5 to the in 6 book. Here and there, I included new examples just to make it a little bit more challenging and new to the students as well. Module 7, 8, and 9. This is now what I would say the biggest challenge for entrepreneurship and business studies in 6. And that is the specification in the syllabus that students
Hi, Alma, we're not hearing you.
You having to mark the whole business plan again. So there we included a template. But now they also have to develop a business plan for a franchise, an international business, and a consultancy. And yes, this is quite a nightmare. And I think you all are of the opinion that this is actually not viable. To assist you, you will see that there is in annexure at the back of the book, we will come to it back again on a later slide, where I inserted the whole content of what should be included in a business plan, like the students did in N4. They will also be able to access it by scanning the QR codes. Now, when we put in the QR codes, we also obviously took into account that in an exam, a student can't scan a code to see something. That is why we also put in the layout of the business plan in a hard copy format. I would suggest, and this is only a suggestion, that you follow one of the following two options. Have a look at the content of the business plan in the annexure, and then you will see that I have highlighted what will differ in that business plan, the traditional format, for a franchise, the international business, and the consultancy. The students are very familiar with the basic aspects of a business plan by now. You know, like having your executive summary, the SWOT analysis, etc. Maybe you can then compile a template only addressing the additional aspects for these three kinds of businesses. But I clearly guided you at the back of the book by saying exactly where you can find the specific section in the textbook and also how it differs from the business plan that the students did in the past. Option 2 maybe that you divide the class into 3 groups. You can provide them with the traditional template for a business plan, and then let each group only do one of the 3. In other words, one group will do the franchise, one will do the consultancy, and one will do the international business plan. There are vast differences. You can think for yourself that your marketing strategy for an international business plan will differ because there are other aspects that you also have to take into account, like the demographics of that international business. You can still keep it simple, but I am really of the opinion, without trying to overrule a syllabus, but also to let you adhere to a syllabus, that you decide on one of these 2 options, owing to a time constraint for the lecturer and the student to do 3 different business plans. All right, this is actually what I referred you to already, the annexure that you will find right at the end of the book or at the back of the book. And for instance, there you will see, if you look at the topics, indicated every time where in the book can you find what will the business section look for or business plan look like for a franchise, what will it look for an international business, etc. So you will also note that, unfortunately, I had to repeat the theory at the end of the franchise, the consultancy, and the international business plan, because we also had to adhere to the syllabus. If 7.4 says it must be the market feasibility study, we could not omit it. So there is a repetition of certain sections of theory. Module 1, I already spoke about. The approach in this module is on planning your business. So this is more theoretical, and you will note that theory from N5 is actually repeated here, and I had to repeat it again in module 3. Students should already be very familiar with the vision, the mission, the objectives, but here the accent is more on thorough planning in achieving the set mission and objectives, and then to look at the development of a strategy for implementation. To assist you in the practical application of the subject, I really included a lot of examples. And it is color coded so that you can say to the students the examples will be this color and that it's of high value to work through the examples, as those are the typical open book questions and application type of question that they can expect in the exam. The weighted value of module 2 is not very high, although you will note that I did write quite a lot on this, but the theory is not that much. Again, I included a number of examples of the various types of entrepreneurs, because as in the old syllabus, we had to discuss the entrepreneur as hero, the woman entrepreneur, part-time entrepreneurs, etc. In this module, the students should also be able to relate to why they actually should consider to become an entrepreneur, and the fact that there are indeed opportunities to become an entrepreneur. Included in here, you will also see a little bit of N4, because we take them back again to what is the difference between an intrapreneur and an entrepreneur, what are key success factors, and why do entrepreneurs fail. Students must also understand that if they get questions on, say, for instance, why did Songisu not make a success of this business, that although it is an open book exam, they can't just take any reasons from the textbook. Obviously, they must first try and find the answers in the case study. That is the whole idea of a case study. And talking about case studies, lecturers, if you set a case study and you go through the questions and you can actually answer all those questions without reading the case study, then it's not a good case study. A case study is also not a comprehension test where you provide the students with the answers directly in that case study. It's quite tricky to set a proper case study, because remember, it's an open book and you don't want students just to copy answers from the textbook. As a matter of fact, you must strongly warn them against doing so, because if markers discover that sentences are directly copied from a textbook, they will not be awarded marks for that. You actually have to integrate the theory with the applicable case study. Then module 3, as I've said before, please, I strongly advise that you do module 3 and module 1 and module 3 as a unit, because here you will come to the practical application or implementation of the vision, mission, objectives, and strategies. I really included many practical examples to assist you and the students in the practical application of the development of a vision and deriving the mission from the vision, and then the long-term medium-term, and short-term objectives. It is very important with the development of objectives that it must adhere to the SMART principle of specific, measurable, etc. I do find that students very often are very vague in writing long-term objectives. You normally should have a timeline attached to it, as well as if you say you want to make profit, also that expressed in rand value. That will also be explained in many practical examples in Module 3. Then the implementation of strategic planning. Let me just quickly see. Yeah, the implementation of strategic planning in a business. Now we come to the competitive analysis, is actually the heading of this slide, where you will do a complete analysis of who are your competitors. And here you will find the very, very important Porter's model of competitive forces. Now, again, this can be in the open book exam as well as in the closed book exam. But it's very important that the students should understand the impact of this competitive or these competitive forces. This is not always so easy, and you will also see that I linked it again to Module 5, because these two also to a certain extent go hand in hand. In Module 4, you will also find keywords. When you do this module with the students, make them aware of terminology like driving forces, competitive forces, economic characteristics or forces, key success factors. I do find that students get very confused in a case study, because remember, if they are given a case study, in that case study, you can ask the students, what are the driving forces, discuss the competitive forces, what would be the dominant economic characteristics that will have an influence on this business, what would you say will be the key success factors of this business. In your textbook, you will see that I presented quite a number or quite a volume of the theory in 3 columns. For example, the dominant economic characteristics, where I name them or list them in the first column. Then in the second column, there is an explanation. And in the third column, you will always find application, because at the end, the accent is on application. Module 5, strategy and competitive advantage. Every time you will see that these modules take the student back to a specific strategy that had been developed. And obviously, the strategy is determined by the vision and the mission and the objectives. And strategies will be revised as objectives will also be revised. So that is why I've said this module again links to Module 1, 3, and 4. It is about the question of how can a business stay competitive, taking into account the SWOT analysis, taking into account industry in which this business is operating. So in this module, there is a whole section on industry analysis, competitive analysis, and the SWOT analysis. Here you also find the different ways in which a business can stay competitive as it was in the old syllabus, namely the generic competitive strategies. What give you this advantage? Are you a low-cost producer? Do you make use of differentiation, or do you make use of the focus strategy? Lecturers, those of you that have lectured the subject will know these type of questions are always included in case studies. They will give you, for example, a scenario on Woolworths, and then they will give you some information. They will say, which two main generic competitive strategies do Woolworths use? But it's not only about having a generic competitive strategy, it's also about gaining a competitive advantage. And students struggle with, if you ask them in the exam, what is the competitive advantage of this business? They must understand that a competitive advantage is something that put you in a better position than your competitor. They don't phrase it nicely. They would say something like low prices, but that's wrong. They must be very specific. They have to say lower prices than, or we have online bookings and our competitors don't have. It must be clear what is the competitive advantage. And then you also find in this module the strategies that you can use to secure that competitive advantage. In other words, how can you obtain it, and then also how to protect it. So it's about the defensive and the offensive strategies. May I just mention at this point that, with the exception maybe of Module 2, Module 1, 3, 4, and 5 never can be read or seen in isolation. If you analyze previous exam papers, you will also see it's very, very much integrated. A case study is asked, and then they ask the SWOT analysis, they ask the generic strategies, they ask the development of a mission, or they give the vision and mission, and the students must evaluate that. The last three modules focus then on the other type of businesses, but even so, even with this, if you look at the old exam papers, and there is always a case study on buying an existing business, and then there is normally the calculation that needs to be done. Now, that is actually the only long calculation that you will find in the In6 book. And we are busy making some videos on certain aspects, like the calculation of buying an existing business, the very, very important SWOT analysis, because you will never find a paper without these two. It is quite straightforward. It also includes very important terminology, mostly financially related. But some of these, the students will also already have embedded knowledge, because they already did in 5 with aspects such as liquidity, profitability, and solvability. They also studied in 5 how to calculate liquidity, profitability, and solvability. Obviously, all three of these will play a very, very important role when you have to make a decision on whether you are going to buy existing business. If you analyze previous exam papers, even with this model, you will see they bring in aspects that students already covered in module 1 up to 5. That is why if you look at the end of each module, you will find a summative assessment like I did for the In4 and the In5 book. But the answers will not only come from the specific module that you are busy with now, but it will be a combination of questions from all the modules that the students have done up to this specific point. Module 7 with a weighted value of 13 is actually not a very long module. I think it's only up to 7.2 or 7.3 because the rest is on the business plan, the market feasibility, the financial feasibility, all aspects that students are very, very familiar with. Again, lecturers, those of you that have lectured the subject will know there's always a case study on a franchise. But then the questions also come from other modules, like what are the dominant success or key success factors of this business? What strategy did this business use? So again, even this cannot be seen in isolation. I did cover, as prescribed by the syllabus, all the aspects that they wanted to be included in the business plan for a franchise, but I would strongly recommend that you make use of the annexure to get an overall view of a business plan, as this will also highlight where the differences come in when you have to do a franchise business plan. Because in the case of a business plan for a franchise, some of the things like the marketing aspects will be determined by the franchisor. Please take note of this very high weighted value for the international business plan. Yes, it is indeed quite a complicated module, as this is not always within the experience of the student. You will see the repetition of facts again with regard to the business plan. Please pay only attention to the differences when it comes to the international plan. Don't do the work over and over and over again, because I think when you come to modules 7, 8, and 9, you will think, but it's the same theory every time. But remember, many aspects with a business plan stay the same, with then here and there the differences between the franchise, the consultancy, and the international business plan. Consultancy, weighted value 10, really a very, very short module. It is actually only unit 9.1 and 9.2 that will be new to the students. Units 9.3 up to 9.5 is again on the business plan, already covered. You know, just to highlight one difference, for example, with a consultancy, you have to create your own market, and it will therefore be quite tricky to do a market analysis like you can do with other types of businesses. Yes, so what we did, we really aligned all these modules 100% with the national curriculum. If the curriculum says 7.1, you will find the 7.1 in the textbook. Just a brief word You might have noted that my name is on the book, as well as the name of Stephen Timmers. He also had been in education for almost 25 years. I approached him to assist me in writing the module on buying an existing business because we were really very much under time constraint. And I thought he would be the best person to do so, as he is currently lecturing financial accounting in 6 and entrepreneurship and business management in 6. He also assisted in the development partially of module 7, the franchise. Those of you that are currently already using the N4 and the N5 book will know that the book or our books are really packed with activities. You might not even have time to do all the activities. But these activities relate to typical questions that can be asked in both the open and the closed book exam. As prescribed by the syllabus, we've highlighted to you all tasks color-coded in green so that it can stand out and that you can know that these are the tasks as required by the department to form part of assessment 1 with the weighted value of 20%. The value of case studies, I cannot put enough accent on this, because at the end, in the open book exam, it's about application of knowledge. And students need to get practical exercise in the ability to read, to interpret, and to combine their knowledge that they obtained not only from one module, but from all the modules. You will note every module starts with a clear overview and the outcomes 100% taken from the N6 syllabus. As with N4 and N5, there will be starter activities, either taking the students back to embedded knowledge. Like in module 1, I would see, or you can test them, do they still remember from N5 what is a mission, what is a long-term objective, what does SMART stand for? It's just to let them think a little bit before they start. Otherwise, the starter activities will be something totally new and something that they've never seen before, but that will be dealt with in the new module. But you just trigger them to start thinking of what might be coming. Examples, a lot. You might think the textbook looks thick, but it is because we really included a lot of examples to make it easier for the students to, at the end, apply their knowledge to case studies. You will also note included are online activities. I would say this is now rather a bonus than anything else. We will never do something to the disadvantage of a student, because we are fully aware of the fact that all students and even lecturers at colleges don't have at all time access to internet. But we did include some online activities, but it will not be to the disadvantage of students if you don't have access to the internet. Yes, I'm very proud of our QR codes, taking them back to N4, whether it is now for a video or whether it is now for theory that they should just quickly browse through again. In other words, those embedded knowledge. There will also be new videos. As I've said, we are looking at making a video on the calculation of buying an existing business, as well as the SWOT analysis, but there might be one or two more than that. At this point, may I just mention to you that you must now please take care and take note of the fact that the promotion copy that you get is not the final copy. In other words, all the QR codes, like for the new videos, still need to be added. It's just a promotion copy to enable you to see what we've done and to make a selection of the textbook for next year. As we all know that colleges do expect from you at this point in the year to already decide on a textbook for next year. I strongly believe in diagrams. The mind is just very better reminding or remembering a diagram than pages. And that is also why I inserted quite a number of these. The notes is just if you want to bring an aspect to their attention. For example, when buying an existing business, it's also advisable to have a broker. It's not that it's theory as such, it's just to make them aware of some aspects. You know, they always, you know how we get upset. They always want to know, ma'am, what exam tips do you have? But you know, we're not the external examiners, so we can just say to them, exam tips mean advice. For example, make sure that you know the steps first before you try and do the calculations. They can't only figure out in the exam what are the steps to calculate certain numerical values. By then they should know the steps and they should just be able to apply their knowledge. We are aware of the fact that languages differ and that all students are not necessarily having English as their first language, and therefore whenever we came across a word that we think or thought might need explanation, we also add that as vocabulary. Some of these terms are actually asked in the closed book exam. That I already spoke about. Just see this as a bonus where students can do even some more research. And some of these articles are also very interesting. Please note, this is more for enrichment. I think I've said enough on case studies. They are clearly color-coded, and these are the typical type of questions that normally appear in external exams. You know, when I developed the lecturer's guide, I really had to think very hard to answer at times my own case studies. But this is what it is actually like in 6. Some of these case studies are challenging because it covers all the modules and is not only based on one module. You will also find a summary for each module. Now, when theory had been summarized very nicely in a table already, I didn't repeat the theory here at the end, but I only made reference to the table in the textbook. This is extremely important. I know that you might not have time working through all the activities, but I strongly recommend that you work through all the case studies and that you work through all the summative assessments at the end of each module. I know I still refer here to a section A and a section B, but you know that is actually like paper 1 and paper 2. But the closed book exam is typical, you know, briefly explain, list, discuss, state, multiple choice, true, false, fit column A to column B. And then your open book exam is absolutely about application. Some more features of this book is then guiding you in and the students how to approach the compilation of the various business plans. And please bear in mind my advice on how you can do this, because it is really impossible for every student to update the N4 and N5 business plan as well as developing 3 new business plans. I think Annexure A will assist you a lot in how to approach this section of the syllabus. The glossary, always very valuable. Sometimes you just need to quickly check what does a word mean. So it relates also to a certain extent to vocabulary. As with N4 and N5, you will find a comprehensive lecturer's guide with all the answers, literally all the answers to all the exercises in the book. You will find the suggested teaching plan, a lesson plan template. You will also find included a practice exam with a marking guideline. Lecturers, we really sat and we worked out how many weeks are there, and we already divided the topics into those weeks. You can actually, if you are happy with it, you can just fill in your dates and you can put that in your portfolio. Also a very important other document required by DHET. There's also a workbook. I strongly recommend that you buy the workbook for the students, because in there they can do all these exercises and they are allowed to take this workbook with all the answers to all the exercises also into the examination room. It's also nice for you to say to them, go to the workbook, do exercise so-and-so, and then from your lecturer's guide, you can provide them with the answers. Lecturers, don't overload your students with a lot of little booklets and information, because you can also have an overload of information. And I really think if you give the student the workbook, you have the lecturer's guides, you've got the videos, you've got the PowerPoint slides, then you and the students are very, very well equipped. Oh yes, I just want to mention 2 last things. The book also will come, like the N4 and the N5 book, with PowerPoint slides. We made it in such a way that you can change it, you can add. In other words, we are just giving you the framework. We must remember that for the mind to remember something, it's also important for the student. For example, if he sees a certain diagram in his textbook, that same diagram must be used on the PowerPoint slide. That is how you assist the student to remember something. But if you've got a diagram in the textbook, but a different diagram on the PowerPoint slide, you might confuse the mind. That is why we also provide you with a framework of that. Just to summarize, as with the other books, you get an overview at the beginning of each module. The book is color-coded. We included QR codes, the business plan, activities. I think you can all read the slide because we're almost running out of time, but this is actually all that you need to have to enjoy this subject. Yeah, and I think that is the end of my story. Again, I think we're almost running out of time, but I can take questions. I also don't mind if you provide the lecturers with my email address, and wherever I can assist, I will do so with pleasure. Thank you once more for the opportunity.
Thank you, Alma, for a very detailed presentation. I'm sure the lecturers have benefited from your experience and your wisdom and all the knowledge you've shared this afternoon. So Alma's email is almajvr, that's ALMAJVR @gmail.com. So she's willing to for you to send her emails beyond this presentation today if you've come up with anything that you need assistance with or any clarity regarding the syllabus. Alma's ever willing to help. But in the remaining time, if there are any questions, please unmute yourself and we'll give you the opportunity to raise your question. There's nothing in the chat or question box, so if you do have something, please just unmute yourself and you can ask Alma to assist you.
Okay, maybe just you can remind them that a recording will also be sent if they want to listen to it again.
Yes, definitely. So after today's presentation, we will have a recording available from tomorrow. So if you're interested, please make a note of my email address, and it's in the chat box, and we will be quite happy to send that to you. I'm not seeing any responses, any questions. Alma, shall we just say thank you very much to the lecturers who have attended, and to you as well for giving up your time and making the presentation possible.
Thank you so much, Gain, and also my best wishes to the lecturers, and thank you for your enthusiasm and for attending this webinar.
Yes, thank you very much, lecturers, and all the best for the forthcoming exams and the rest of the year. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.